My name is Kenyah Sandy, and I play Kingsley Smith in Steve McQueen's Smart Education.
They say our children are too loud, too slow, or too lively. The school system has a policy of targeting our children. There is a deeply rooted cultural bias. As a collective, we stand a chance.
Is it Kenyah?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right, I just want to make sure. I don't want to start off wrong. So Kenyah, all right, so let's go ahead and just get down to it. You star in this film that is the 5th part of a Steve McQueen epic series. And I know you probably were ecstatic as soon as you got the call, as soon as you got signed on to do it, absolutely. But I got to tell you personally, your performance was amazing because the character Kingsley goes through different facets of emotions throughout. Like he, has a lot of fear and a lot of shame about perception from his family, from his friends. He very much so is very ambitious about this belief and yearning to be an astronaut and fascination behind that. But there's a real innocence about his character when he's really just in need of really true help. And he's not getting it from anywhere. So I just want to say I commend you for as young as you are, your performance. You did an amazing job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get down to it. So the first thing I was going to say, as far as some scenes that were probably emotionally hard to kind of get through, I'm going to bring you through 3 different ones. But I just want you to kind of go through the stages of how hard was that and why it was so hard. If it wasn't hard, then that's fine. You can admit to that as well. But the bathtub scene is one, because that was kind of really, as a father myself, I was kind of what is going through his headspace? Where is he at emotionally? The bus scene, when he first gets on the bus, realizes everybody around him is just completely different. And then I would say the last moment where it's the mother and the sister when they're looking at the TV and the mother confronts them to read. Because all of those have different dissections of emotions, but you executed it very well. But I was just curious, what did you have to go through? What are the challenges with each one of those scenes for you personally as an actor?
The bath scene, I think it was just, what was going through my mind, I think it wasn't really clear what to do. I think it was more the kind of instructions, but I think what was going through my mind then was just the weight of that day, or I think just in general what's been going through. I think it was just reflecting on my day, and I think what I kind of interpreted was just just locking the outside world. I think it was just, let me just be by myself for a second. Let me just kind of go through my thoughts, just see where I am with Kingsley at the moment. And I think it was more just reflecting and kind of asking myself questions and seeing if I was okay. I think I needed, only do other people need to comfort me, but do I need to comfort myself and have faith in myself? I think it was just thinking about that, and I think just blocking everything else. I like just being silent for a moment and just appreciating what I was going through or just what was happening at the moment. I think the bus scene, it was just the transition from going from such a structured school, children politely, everyone was just quite suitable, you could see everyone sitting up, and then just going to a crazy loud bus. I think it was just, the thought going in my head was, although I had dyslexia, I was so used to being at that school before that structure of knowing to sit correctly. I think just going to this new school was more it's kind of thinking that those people are pathetic in a way. I think just kind of those people who aren't disciplined, and it was do I really have to go to this school? That question of what is in Kingsley that is making other people think I'm that stupid? I'm not. And I think it was just that frustration of, I'm gonna have to spend a couple of months at this school, seeing these children every single day. I think in my head I was a bit I'm never gonna really become friends with them. It was that thing of, let me just stay by myself, get what I need to get through, learn how to read, because that is something I am embarrassed about. I think just let me try and just march through it. But then you slowly see throughout the film that he kind of adapts into that, kind of takes attributes from them with the barking. And I think he kind of falls into a trap where he just accepts, I think. He's gonna stay there. And I think the last scene that you were talking about, I think that was more just committing to the character. I think it was more of, I can't read. It was very challenging. I think when I woke up in the morning and I got the message saying you're doing this scene today, that whole day was just like very for the scene. I was like, all right, what's gonna happen? I think everything just needed to come out, and that was actually just one take. It was like, let's just practice. Let's just see. Steve was like, all right, I'm gonna direct you for what you have to do, and let's let the scene like begin. So I think it was more just being in the character. I think it was more kind of just showing the mum that I couldn't. I think it was, she's never seen me read at all. I'm always saying to someone else, can you read for me? So it was that fear of what would my mum say? I think that's what kind of brought the crying out and just the stress out. It was more of like, my mum now knows. I think she was the one person I tried to impress the most. I think just showing her, mum, I can't read. And then I think I hadn't cried a lot or just expressed my emotions as much as in that scene. So it was kind of just releasing all that stress, and I knew after this moment, my mum was going to take care of me now. So it was more of like just kind of going into her arms, I think. And that's what kind of brought it to life. Yeah. Yeah,
no, I think that's the perfect identification of it, because up until that point, Kingsley, he had been going through a lot of different things. He'd been kicked out, he had gone through different emotions of trying to tell his mom, but he never really cried. He never really let any of it out. He'd just been kind of burying it. And each one of those scenes, I was kind of like, he could easily slip to depression or worse. And I was kind of like, this was the release that he really truly needed, and that connection bridge that intersected everything. Because everything past that point, it was all about progress, no matter what the case. And I thought that was beautiful. But as far as like your research, as far as the character, and whether it be dyslexia or whether it be just the shame side of like trying to keep that a secret, did you do any research for the character before you got the role?
I have 2 dyslexic cousins, so I kind of spoke to them and they kind of gave me their version of what dyslexia was. I think just they told me that, like my mom kind of said, in school sometimes you get 10 minutes extra in a test just because of how it's hard for them to interpret the words fast enough. So I kind of did that research just to see their side of it, nowadays as well, especially. But also I kind of just looked on the definition of dyslexia. And I think it was Mal just interpreting that into Kingsley, which was one of the hardest challenge I think I faced. I think those couple of scenes that I did, and I looked at the sentence and I was like, Kenyah, you can't read that sentence. And I was trying to brainwash myself. Like, you can't read it. You can't read it. And I think it got to the point when I was stuttering, it was like, I genuinely thought I couldn't. I think that was the hardest part of playing that role. I think once I couldn't believe, that's when the frustration came in. That's when I was like, why can't you read it? There was so many questions that needed to be answered. I think once I started, I think I kind of later on throughout, once it got to a bad stage in Kingsley's just thought process, it was like, I don't think there's any hope in myself reading. I think once I started attending to the day school and just learning the traditions, and I think it was just, I slowly had faith. I think it was that hope of, I can. And that's when he started getting lifted up. So I think it was more of just, I think once you get a character, I think especially this one, just not only just knowing the lines and just knowing you can't read, I think research helps, especially. I think if I hadn't have done that preparation to get Kingsley, I don't think it wouldn't have come out as it was. Yeah, it
definitely comes off very naturally. Like it starts off, I was kind of like assessing, like, is Kingsley just kind of acting out? He's like being like a kid, but then I was like, no, there is something that he is really truly hiding within himself that he doesn't want to deal with. It's not even so much he wants help from everybody, but he doesn't even know how to accept it. And I thought you did a great job. So the last thing I just had is, based on playing this role and getting into this character, thinking about like other kids, your age, and thinking about like just the message and the perspective of this, how does this reflect on you as a young man, and your treatment and your connection with people that are also dealing with this even now today, outside of just all the racial side of it? Because one of the things I realized after reviewing this is that, yes, the school that he went to, the special needs school, was failing him, but the school that he was at was also failing him as well, fundamentally, with not being able to identify that he couldn't read. Whether or not they cared or not, they really pushed him into that situation. So just having that understanding as a Black man, as well as like just understanding the character, what does this do for you? And what do you think the movie is going to do ultimately for kids and families moving forward?
I think straight away I was just very grateful. I think a lot of the time, what you have, and I think take time. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you want, and there's a lot of stuff that you need, and you shouldn't really care about what you need at the moment. Appreciate what you have. So I think it was a lot of just thinking it must be so hard. I think especially not being able to read. It's having that is so important in life, and I think something like that stopping you is quite hard to deal with. So I think it kind of playing the character just kind of, it showed me people like this suffer from it a lot of the time, but they still continue to think life is a positive. So by right, if I don't have something, I'm still privileged to be able to read. So always be happy. I think positive. I think also just in general with this, it's gonna educate a lot of my generation with how racist schools were. I think it kind of showed me there were some scenes I did, and when I'm reading the sentence, I'm like, yeah. And then when they act it out, I'm like, I generally felt that frustration when the lady was like climbing a tree. It was a bit like, who do you think you are? Like, I generally I was angry, and I think a lot of the time now in schools when teachers do tell you something, you're angry, but it's like they are much easier than they were before, and I think this is going to show kids how privileged they are to live such an easy life. I think in general, just with all the other films as well, just to show how bad it was in those days, and like a lot of stuff that our ancestors did to get to where we are now, and we have to appreciate it. We can't kind of take it for granted, I think, a lot of the time. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, that was perfect responses, perfect performance. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, man.
Have a good morning. Morning time.
For me, it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so I would like a nap, but it's not gonna happen. All right, thank you, buddy.
You're the small axe, sharpened to cut you down.